Brett Kavanaugh had a hearing, what was it, 3 or 4 days ago now, and it went on pretty much all day, and it was the biggest news story of the day by far. Every outlet was talking nonstop about it. Well, I had to chime in. I know this is after the fact, but I had to chime in on a particular part of it. I'm going to play this for you, and then we'll discuss it, but this is Lindsey Graham absolutely losing his mind during the hearing, and he's going to go over the top in his defense of Brett Kavanaugh. Take a look.
Are you aware that at 9:23 on the night of July the 9th, the day you were nominated to the Supreme Court by President Trump, Senator Schumer said, 23 minutes after your nomination, "I will oppose Judge Kavanaugh's nomination with everything I have. I have a bipartisan, and I hope a bipartisan majority will do the same. The stakes are simply too high for anything less." Well, if you weren't aware of it, you are now. Did you meet with Senator Dianne Feinstein on August 20th?
I did meet with Senator Feinstein.
Did you know that her staff had already recommended a lawyer to Dr. Ford?
I did not know that.
Did you know that her and her staff had this allegations for over 20 days?
I did not know that at the time.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job interview.
Consider that you've been through a job interview.
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution.
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell. This is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. Here's my understanding. If you lived a good life, people would recognize it, like the American Bar Association has the gold standard. His integrity is absolutely unquestioned. He is the very circumspect in his personal conduct, harbors no biases or prejudices. He's entirely ethical, is a really decent person. He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person. The ABA. The one thing I can tell you, you should be proud of. Ashley, you should be proud of this, that you raised a daughter who had the good character to pray for Dr. Ford. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade. And I wish you well, and I intend to vote for you, and I hope everybody who's fair-minded will.
Oh, pipe down, you melodramatic prick. Jesus Christ. I mean, you want to talk about turning the theatrics up to 11 for no goddamn reason. So let's break this down here. I want to go through a bunch of his points because I think responding to it is important. So at the beginning he says, before he gets all flustered and starts yelling, if you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. Well, that's exactly what the Democrats have been calling for an extended period of time. Now, I actually have disagreements with them on that. I would prefer a criminal investigation because if these charges are true, well, then have a criminal investigation look into it because now there's not even just one allegation. There's, 4 or 5. And if anybody wants to get to the truth and wants to hold somebody accountable like any other person would be held accountable, well, then you should have some sort of a criminal investigation. Now, to be fair, I'm not sure what the statute of limitations is, but the allegations, at least in the case of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, it's attempted rape. So that strikes me as an incredibly serious charge and crime. And listen, if you're somebody who says, well, I don't believe it, well, then you have nothing to fear from a criminal investigation because it will clear his name. So I have a different approach than the Democrats, but when Lindsey Graham says, oh, hey, like you should have been reasonable and called for an FBI investigation. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. That's all I heard from every Democrat was, let's have an FBI investigation. So for you to now pretend like, well, you should have done this thing that you're doing. It's like, that makes no sense. That's exactly what they're calling for right now. And then there's another part in the hearing where they said to Kavanaugh, like, oh, because Kavanaugh said repeatedly throughout the hearing, like, I'm in favor of clearing my name with an investigation. But then when asked directly, like, okay, so will you recommend right now an FBI investigation into it, he would always kind of dodge the question and tap dance around it. So it's so weird that, like, you're getting all worked up and you're getting angry when the Democrats are calling for exactly what you said they should call for. Just incredibly weird. Then he says, oh, the Democrats are trying to hold this seat open. Listen, Neil Gorsuch skated by and got right in the court with barely a whimper, okay? So clearly the Democrats, and this is to my dismay, I wish they would fight hard and I wish they would obstruct on issues where they should obstruct, because you are the opposition party. But Gorsuch, there wasn't a sexual assault allegation against him. There wasn't much of a resistance to him. And he flew by and he got on the court. So this idea of like, oh, this is all mucked up. That's what this is. Well, if it's mucked up, why wouldn't they have tried it with the first pick, Neil Gorsuch? I mean, again, the arguments that they're making just don't make sense. Or the arguments that Lindsey Graham is making, it just doesn't make sense. And then the other point is, you're going to now be concerned about holding a seat up. What about Merrick Garland? What? They broke the record of not even holding a hearing for the guy. Obama had something like over a year left in his presidency, and they're like, see, what happened was you can't have. It's a new rule we just came up with. It's you can't the last year of a presidency, you can't before the election, you can't. What are you gonna do? You can't put somebody on the Supreme Court because it's a year before the next election. Well, by that logic, it's not a year until the midterms. It's less than a year until the elections. In fact, the elections are very close, the midterms. So by your own logic, sorry that you set the standard and now the Democrats are doing something similar, but you set the standard now, didn't you? Okay, then, classic Lindsey Graham nonsense. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. Now, I'm going to get, in other stories, I'm going to get to how that's just literally not true, and that Kavanaugh lied repeatedly, and there's merit and there's evidence to back up the allegations. Now, you could say, oh, this shouldn't be brought up anyway. Okay, that's a position that you could take. But the idea that, oh, it's an unethical sham and there's nothing to this. No, but there is something to it, and it's actually been, it's fairly provable, in my opinion, based on the evidence that we already have. Again, I'll get to that in later stories, and I'll lay that out for you in detail. because Kavanaugh repeatedly committed perjury. It's not even close. It's just obvious how many times he lied and the evidence that Dr. Blasey Ford has for her. So to call it an unethical sham is just not true. And then also, here's a guy who's been for every single offensive war since he's been in politics. That's not an exaggeration. When he ran for president, by the way, LOL, he ran for president. This is the guy who said openly, I think it was an interview with CNBC, he was asked, hey, so how do you get out of Iraq? He says, you don't leave. You stay there. So a guy who voted for an offensive war, an illegal war under international law against a country that didn't attack us, and then we occupied that country. Then we ordered torture to cover it up. A guy who voted for the Patriot Act, which of course, legalized warrantless, unconstitutional NSA spying. That guy is now saying, this is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. What? I mean, come on, man. That's just an insane thing to say. It's an insane thing to say. And how angry he gets pisses me off more than anything, because it's like, dude, some of these wars killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Not only did he not raise his voice in opposition to it, he didn't have any opposition to it. And in fact, he actively supported these wars. So spare me. I mean, it's when another entitled, pampered prep school prick gets called out on his garbage that Lindsey Graham melts down. I mean, that's what this is. By the way, these allegations, before Trump even picked Kavanaugh, these allegations were out. When there was the list that said, oh, here are the potential Supreme Court picks. Dr. Christine Blasey Ford said, Brett Kavanaugh did this to me. So even before he was picked, this was out there. And Dr. Christine Blasey Ford told a therapist in 2012, hey, I was sexually assaulted. Somebody attempted to rape me. It was Brett Kavanaugh. And, the other guy was in the room, whatever his name is. He put his hand over her mouth and tried to force himself on her. But it's when other elitists who have the proper pedigree, yes, are called out on their bullshit that they save their anger for those moments. And it's all, my reputation has been harmed by y'all. Unbelievable, terrible things you've said about me. What about my reputation? I think your reputation is ruined enough by your own actions and by your own judicial philosophy, by the way, which is another thing the Democrats should be resisting on. Unfortunately, they're only resisting in regards to his personal conduct. And then he goes on to say, well, if there was one allegation, what the hell? There's usually many allegations. So obviously you didn't do it because there's only one allegation. First of all, that's hilarious that it is impossible for there to be one allegation against somebody. That's just not true. Of course it's possible for that to happen. That's happened many times. Sure, you could say there's a pattern of if there's one, there's many. But to say like, oh, if there's not many, therefore it's bullshit. I mean, what a flimsy fucking argument. And then furthermore, there are multiple allegations. So he's just ignoring it or lying about it. And then finally, he says, if you vote no, you're legitimizing something despicable here. And this is the heart of the pathetic charade that is Lindsey Graham's faux anger here. Now he's made it so that, oh, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the charade. So in other words, on judicial philosophy, you cannot oppose Kavanaugh. Because obviously, on that front, well, he's perfect for the job. And that is the heart of what I hate about what Lindsey Graham is doing here. Because that implication is utter garbage. Even if you frame it from the Republican perspective, like, oh, if you're a Republican, obviously you would support this guy and don't give in to the charade. No, but if you're a Republican, for example, there are some conservatives in the House who would say, you know what? I genuinely don't like big government. Brett Kavanaugh, in his decisions, has come out in favor of warrantless, unconstitutional NSA spying on everybody, collecting everybody's metadata. So from a principled conservative perspective, his ideology is wrong. And I don't agree with that. So I'm not going to vote for him. But again, Lindsey Graham frames it like, no, that's not a thing. It's not a thing to reasonably disagree with Kavanaugh, even putting the allegations aside. It's not a thing to reasonably disagree with Kavanaugh on his judicial philosophy. So you have to vote for him now because you don't want to legitimize something despicable. It's just, that's garbage, Lindsey. That's not an argument. That's not a point. That's a dumb, preposterous, silly thing to say, but you said it anyway. Because you save all your anger and all your outrage for defending this fucking jackass, jack off. Probably shouldn't say jack off in this context. But that's what you're going to do. This is the hill you want to die on. The hill you want to die on. Pick another pampered prep school prick. Pick another one.